Hello, hello, hello. How are you guys doing today? Okay, I have my fan, and I have the lip gloss and all this kind of stuff, but I just cannot get into the intro today. Let me tell you why, alright? So, I filmed this entire video and rendered it and included receipts, and it's uploaded and ready to go. And I was making my thumbnail for it, and as I was pulling up pictures, it started referencing all of these articles, and I started reading these articles, and I was like, this is so interesting, and I don't know how I forgot about all this, right? As I'm watching this podcast with Jeff Wittek and Tana Mongeau. So, I'm going to remake the video now that I know my facts, because I had a very, my opinion has kind of changed about this, and this is where everything is just so messy with these influencers, you know? It's like, I can remember years ago somebody said, like, why is there only, like, you know, if it was like Jeffree Star and Manny, it's like, why can only, like, one of them has to be the hero and one of them has to be the villain? Why can't, like, everybody in the picture, like, not be a great person, right? And this opinion is probably gonna, like, my opinion about this whole situation is probably gonna shock some of you guys, but it's interesting what I found. Okay, so I put out on my Instagram last night, if you guys want to, if you want to ever be like a part of a Q&A, or if you want to give me topics, I usually put up once a week, like, what do you guys want to hear about from me this week, and things like that. Go follow my Instagram over there, and then in my Instagram stories. Last night, we went over to Alex's aunt and uncle's for his aunt and cousin's birthday. They had a Venezuelan singer. Everybody was dancing in the kitchen. I put up videos of that last night. We had such a blast. Already went to the pool. The pool opened today. Already went to the pool. Oh, by the way, before I get into this any further, I do want to say, and I'll probably say this in a couple videos because I don't really know, the last couple times that I put stuff up on my Instagram, like for questions and stuff, people have asked me, they're like, Peter, why don't you do memberships on your channel? And the reality is that I don't really know a whole lot about the whole membership thing. I get the emails from YouTube about like, oh, you should start memberships, and people from time to time will be like, Peter, you should do memberships on your channel. I don't really know what I would give away extra. You know, it's like, they say on there like, well, you could release your videos early to people, and I'm like, well, when my videos are ready to go, I just post them. So I'm not going to like release them like, I mean, I'm not going to save them, you know, for 24 hours to release them early. I guess I could do membership only live streams. And I'm also thinking about maybe doing this on my vlog too. So if you are somebody out there that has mentioned to me about doing memberships, or if you guys would like me to do that, put it in the comment section below, and also give me some ideas of what you would like included if you were going to get a membership from me. I'm like 15% kind of like thinking about it at this point. The rest of me is like, no, I probably won't do that. But if that's something that you guys would like to see over here, and there are free things, I have 7 channels. I like do so much on all of my channels that it's like, I don't really know what else to give away at this point. So anyway, but people have brought it to me. So if that's something that you guys want, I'm more than willing to look into it. So let me know. Okay, so last night I put out like, what topics do you want me to discuss on my drama channel? And I got a bunch of different things. Actually, somebody gave me a great idea for a video that is like gratitude towards my subscribers, and I just want to say, I think it was Ashley that sent it to me. I just want to say I really, really appreciate it. It was such a great idea, and I really want to go into it. I don't want to just wing it. I really want to think about it, because like I want to think about specific incidences that have happened through the years with subscribers being so kind and so gracious to me. And so I'm going to do that video at some point. I loved that. I loved that recommendation for a video. I actually want to make sure that it was, I think it was her that sent that to me. Hold on, I want to make sure. Hold on really quick. Oh, it was Morgan. It was Morgan that sent it to me, not Ashley. So Morgan, thank you so much for sending that to me. I really, really appreciate that. It was such a great idea. Okay, so that video will be coming, because I want to do like a dedicated, I might do that around my birthday. My birthday's at the end of June. So I want to do like a dedicated video just for like the subscribers that have been around through the years, or the ones that have found me recently. And I have so many like poignant moments of how you guys have been so like just gracious and kind to me. Very specific things that have happened, and so I want to share that with you guys. I thought it was a great idea for a video, so thank you so much for that, Morgan. Okay, so woven in between all these suggestions for videos, people were asking me to talk about this whole situation with Jeff Wittek formerly of the Vlog Squad, who is doing a podcast, and in this podcast, Tana Mongeau's there, and they're in a hot tub, and they're talking, and everybody's like, talk about how Jeff Wittek and Tana Mongeau, like, exposed James Charles. And so I watched the clip of it, Spill Some Tea With Me, on Instagram. Hey girl, how are you? She tags me in a lot of stuff. I don't think she tagged me in that because I almost never talk about this stuff on my channel. David Dobrik, I probably made like 3 videos about in my entire career on YouTube. Tana Mongeau, I've made more than that. But Jeff Wittek, I think I've maybe ever only talked about in reference to Tana Mongeau. And I don't think I've ever like done a dedicated video to him or anything like that. And in all honesty, I didn't know a lot about Jeff Wittek. And so I went in and I was like reading his Wikipedia page. The other day I looked into this because I saw that a lot of drama channels were making videos about the fact that he is now coming out and he is like exposing all these secrets about David Dobrik. So if you don't know kind of the history, and like I said, I am not an expert on this by any means. I'm just giving you kind of like an outsider's view of what I've seen, right? So he used to do a lot of videos with David Dobrik back in the day in the Vlog Squad, and started as a barber, has his own YouTube channel, things like that, now has a podcast. And so years ago, there was, I think it was like 5 years ago, there was a stunt that he did with David Dobrik where he was hanging off the end of an excavator and he got really, really hurt. And like a lot of physical things happened and whatever. And David Dobrik took very little responsibility for it. And at that time, I believe Jeff Wittek put out a 5-part documentary series kind of explaining what happened. Now, just the other day on his Twitter, he said he took the documentary down because the documentary was put out to make David Dobrik look good. He made the documentary in kind of defense of David Dobrik, so David Dobrik would look good. Since then, there has been like a lawsuit that has happened and all this kind of stuff. Jeff Wittek recently was, apparently David Dobrik has a series on Snapchat now, so he was tweeting to Snapchat. Here, I will read you some of the tweets that he was putting out so you guys have an idea. Hold on a second, Jeff Wittek. So he put out, this is about the series. I deleted the documentary off YouTube. That shit was made to protect David when I was still blind to who he really was. I'm recutting it and telling the truth this time. I don't care about money. This kid has plenty from Snapchat and keeps pushing back the trial because there's a trial that's going on between them, a lawsuit. And then he goes on and he acts Snapchat and he says, yo, Snapchat, you're paying a guy that smashed my skull in for a prank and left me with lifelong injuries. He also filmed and organized multiple sexual assaults. That's why I stopped posting. I don't want blood money. So Jeff Wittek is coming out and he's like been putting TikToks out and videos, and he's like been sharing all these like insider secrets about David Dobrik, and really kind of aiming it to make sure that like he would like lose this Snapchat deal and maybe any other sponsorship that are like aiding him when he suffered at the hands of David Dobrik. Now, I can tell you that in my looking at this, okay, even based on his own tweets and what other people are saying out there, that I'm like viewing the public, not just channels out there talking about it or TikTokers, it seems like it's kind of split 50-50. Like 50% of the people, and I think it's kind of been this way ever since the beginning, are people that really feel bad for Jeff Wittek, that he went through this accident and suffered like injuries as a result of it and things like that. The other 50% are like, you were a grown adult, you knew what you were doing, you allowed yourself to be part of this stunt, even if it was a stunt that went wrong. He was like hanging off the end of this excavator. It's like really like hard to watch when you watch it, right? And so, but these people are like, well, you were part of it. When you go to his own tweets, people underneath there are saying that. Like there are people that are saying, I'm so sorry for what David did to you. I'm so sorry this happened to you. And then the other side, it's like people saying, you were a grown adult. I think he's 34 years old. You signed up for this. You knew what was involved when you got, you know, whatever. Take a little bit more responsibility. There were other things that came out where David Dobrik came out in some podcast and said that he wished that Jeff Wittek would take more responsibility for what happened in this accident, okay, and that he didn't. And then that's kind of what inspired Jeff Wittek to come out and be like, okay, I'm done. Like, I'm going to start telling all these secrets of what went on behind the scenes with the Vlog Squad and David Dobrik, and I'm going to share with you who he really is. So that's kind of what he's been doing for the last 2 weeks. Well, then he was in this podcast, I think it's his podcast, and they're sitting in a hot tub and he's with Tana Mongeau. And at some point, he starts talking about James Charles. And James Charles, he said in there, like, would hit on him. He says in there, James Charles hits on, like straight young men in Hollywood. Takes advantage. I think he says he takes advantage of straight young men in Hollywood. Actually, I have the clip right here. Hold on a second. Let's get to I pull it up off of Spill Some Tea With Me. I will credit her below. But here's what he says. Hold on a second.
He preys on young straight men, and he used to text me shit like, I want you to come over and watch a movie. And I'm like, where are you getting these vibes from that I'm that type of guy at all that would do that? But
it's so crazy how many, like, gays I know in LA that are like that. Like, I've never really, like, psychologically unpacked the thought process of, like, is it wrong as a gay? Like, even some of my close gay friends, how they'll, like, hit on you and they know you're straight. But is there just a line of, like, it's fine if they jokingly hit on you, but if it gets too weird and you've denied it one time, then after that, obviously, it's, like, wrong, right? Yep, okay.
Yeah, absolutely, Tana. And this is kind of where my video from before and my video now change. Because what I wanted to educate dear Tana on, who to this day still follows James Charles, Tana Mongeau, who is so performative for the moment off of complete views and clicks. It's interesting because years ago, not years ago, it was like a year ago, I made a video and I was talking about Tana Mongeau, and I was talking about her and Trisha and defending Colleen and coming out against Colleen, but she still defends James Charles, and like it's like they're very similar stories, but Tana has no issue. You know, Tana got called out by Ethan Klein, and she said she would call in and denounce James Charles, but then she was like in his PR with James Charles. She's never called into Ethan Klein and denounced him. I think even like on the award show with H3, the H3 podcast, she said the same thing, and she still hasn't done it. She's still following James Charles to this day. I looked. She still follows him to this day, right? So you take such an issue. She talked about him like a year ago on her podcast and talked about all these that he was a predator towards all these straight men that he was trying to coerce and things like that. And so in my previous video, I went in and I said, you know, that like as somebody that has been fighting the good fight for the LGBT community for over 30 years, that yes, I am very grateful for my, you know, heterosexual straight male allies that I've had through the years. Very, very dear friends of mine that are straight men, right? And yes, many of them I have found very attractive, you know, and that's not to say that I haven't found straight celebrities attractive. But yes, Tana, to answer your question, there's a line that you don't cross, right? Especially when you know that that person is heterosexual, you know that they're not interested in you. Even if they're gay and they're not interested in you, you don't cross that boundary, right? Like there's a word that we use for that in our society, and it's not a pretty word, okay? When somebody continues to hit on you over and over and over again, right? I mean, take it out of the context of it being a gay man hitting on, you know, a straight man or something like that, or even a gay man hitting on another gay man. What about a man hitting on a woman that doesn't want to be hit on, okay? It's harassment is what it's called. And so when it happens time and time again, it becomes problematic. Like I said, as somebody that has been fighting the good fight for 30 years, one of the things that is so problematic about this, and I've said this in many, many videos, you know, one of the issues, and I talked about this in my video where I spilled all the tea the other day, was that we live in such this outraged society that people get outraged about things all the time anymore, right? But what you get outraged about is personal to you. What I get outraged about is personal to me, and it's almost kind of like, well, mine is more important than yours is more important than this, right? When everybody's what their issues are important about, and it's about respecting those issues. You know, for my entire life, I have fought this idea that gay men are recruiting straight men. And yet, and I've said this in multiple videos, okay, James Charles and his friends, they are part of that behavior because they continue to hit on straight men. They continue to try to coerce straight men into thinking that they're gay, right? And there's evidence of that out there. Manny's done the same thing, you know. There's Daniel Prada has done the same thing in videos. Manny's done the same thing in TikToks and videos. Joy Graceffa is doing videos where it's like, pick the gay guy, pick the lesbian out of a line, right? It's very stereotype. It's feeding into the stereotypes that we have fought long before I ever came out of the closet, for, you know, for the last 60 to 70 years. And they're feeding into that, right? So when Tana asked the question, is there a line you don't cross? Yes, absolutely, Tana. And I think that the majority of the LGBTQIA plus community absolutely 100% knows that, okay? And so this is where it's important to differentiate. When I'm talking about James Charles in this situation as a gay man, because he is muddying the waters for other gay men out there, I'm not including him in that, okay? James Charles is a predator. Not all gay men are predators. It's actually a stereotype that we have had to fight for 70 years, okay? 80, 100 years. And James Charles is furthering the stigma of that stereotype, right? So when you don't respect the boundaries of whoever out there, whether it's man, woman, gay, straight, whatever it is, when you don't respect somebody's boundaries, okay, that is harassment. You are harassing that person when you're not respecting their boundaries. So in this video clip, Jeff Wittek comments that that James Charles would like call him up on the phone and be like, do you want to come over and watch a movie? Do you want to do this? And Tana's like, oh, that's like, it's so funny. Like I have these, you just heard it. And so he goes over there and he's like, I don't know whatever gave him those vibes that I would think this, right? When I would ever think this vibes. So this is what adds to the problem, okay, with James Charles. Because I think like with somebody like Tana Mongeau or whatever, like when it's convenient for her to come out and talk about James Charles and come against him for views and clicks, she does. And this is what I was going to say earlier. I had this channel about a year ago. Her name's Audra Rains. I love her. She's great. And she made this video and I was talking about Tana and Trisha in it, right? And she like stopped it. And I said something about like, I don't know, I said something about like, you guys don't have like any morals or ethics. You don't really care what you say as long as it's for the views and the clicks. And she stopped it and she was like, Peter, she started laughing. She was like, are you looking at Tana Mongeau and Trisha Paytas for like moral grounds? Like they do everything for clicks and views. Like that's all they care about. They don't care. They are not led with morality at all. And I'm like, oh my God, like she's so right. I got so called out, but she's so right. Yeah. And that's the thing is that Tana Mongeau swings whatever way the popular vote is at that moment, right? If James Charles being in a PR stunt with him is what's going to get her the attention, she's going to do it. If being in a hot tub with Jeff Wittek talking about how horrible James Charles is because he's hitting on straight men, then she's gonna do it, right? And here, let me prove this point to you. So I did this whole video, and I was talking about like how Jeff Wittek and Tana Mongeau, again, because everybody, like all the messages I got were like, oh my God, Jeff Wittek and Tana Mongeau come out and expose James Charles on how he hit on Jeff Wittek. And I'm like, yeah, like James Charles should know better. Like, why is he doing that? In the back of my head, I was like, I kept on thinking, didn't James Charles do like a video with the Vlog Squad back in the day? And wasn't Jeff Wittek part of that? But I couldn't really remember much about it, right? And Jeff Wittek even says something in this podcast where he says something about like why he didn't want to collab with James Charles because of like the whole kind of like Kevin Spacey-esque of it all, right? Like, is this person gonna like, do I have to play into being hit on, or do I have to play into their advances to further my career? And I thought when I watched it, I was like, I thought he was saying that he didn't collab with James Charles. And I was like, oh, I respect that, right? Like, I respect the fact that you're not going to play into that. You're not going to play into the allegations of James Charles. You're not going to play into him hitting on you because your career, like, you want to get it on your own. Well, I was looking at pictures, and I found all these Jeff Wittek's done a couple videos with James Charles. A couple of them. And James Charles is fawning all over Jeff Wittek in these videos. And yes, Jeff Wittek looks very uncomfortable about it. There's one scene in one video where they're checking underneath each other's shirts for their mics. And so, to some degree, Jeff Wittek, like, played along with it. And so, when he asks the question, and this is why this is dangerous, okay? When Jeff Wittek asks the questions, what did I do to give off the vibes that James Charles would think that I was that way? Well, when you watch the video, James asks multiple members of the Vlog Squad who they think he would hook up with first, okay? And most of them don't say Jeff Wittek, but he always says Jeff Wittek. He makes it very apparent that he is interested in Jeff Wittek. James Charles makes it very apparent, okay? If it were me and I was in your shoes, Jeff, in that video, what I would have said is, James, I'm not interested in you, period, end of story. We're not going to play along this line. What I started to remember, and I started looking into it in articles and things like that, was that this was actually kind of a storyline that went for a while. They played this up. This whole kind of like, is Jeff gay? Are Jeff and you know, James Charles going to get together and all this kind of stuff? In fact, I found several articles that were talking about a tweet that Tana Mongeau put out in February of 2019. And her tweet says, I am going to make James and Jeff happen or die trying. Call me millionaire matchmaker. Okay? And I'm like, oh, this is interesting. So now, 5 years later, you're sitting in a hot tub, okay, with Jeff Wittek, talking about that you don't really understand it. Tana, I don't think you're that stupid, okay? I don't think you're that stupid. Just let's play it to you. If a man was coming on to you over and over and over and over again, and you didn't want his advances, and you were not interested in him, okay, I think that you would understand what that was. You've done enough videos talking about stalking and people that like are interested in you that you're not interested in. I think you understand this, okay? We don't have to break it down to gender and sexuality, all right? It's unwarranted advances that somebody wants somebody else, okay? And when you watch these videos, it's It is so obvious that what Toddy Westbrook said, that James Charles thinks he can get anybody. James Charles is not considerate of anybody's sexuality. Go back and watch the videos. Type in on YouTube, type in Jeff Wittek and James Charles, and it'll pull up drama videos that covered it. It'll pull up the clips of it. You guys can go back and watch it, okay? And what you will see is James Charles fawning over Jeff Wittek and the Vlog Squad laughing and thinking it's hilarious, right? Because they know that Jeff's never going to play into it. But in James' head and his ego, he thinks, I can get whoever I want. I mean, he is totally on camera hitting on Jeff Wittek. I'm not really sure why 5 years later so many people are surprised that James Charles picked up the phone and said, hey, do you want to come over and watch a movie with me? Now, this is why this is problematic, okay? Because you chose to lead this person on that thought that they could get anybody that they wanted, okay? Never once in the videos, if you watch it, I watch the clips, okay? Does Jeff Wittek say, I don't want to be with you, James, I'm not interested in you? They play it up for the camera, okay? James Charles is somebody that is so delusional that he thinks he can get anybody anyway, right? This is where when I talk about the people that surround them, James Charles has been surrounded by people that told him that nothing that he did was wrong, okay? Now you've got Jeff Wittek and Tana Mongeau sitting in a hot tub talking about James Charles. Where did he get that vibe? Well, he got that vibe because your friend Tana Mongeau, why did you not ask her on the podcast? Or maybe you didn't, I didn't see that part. But why didn't you say to her, why were you feeding this storyline out there for drama that you were going to hook us up together? If this was something that so bothered you now, why didn't it so bother you then, all right? And these were the kind of things that were feeding the ego and the James Charles believing that he could have whoever he wanted to. I'm not defending at all what James Charles did. I think that what James Charles did was gross and negligent, overstepping boundaries, and I do believe that he's a predator. And I do believe that he tries to coerce straight men into having sexual conversations with him or more, okay? Because I've seen evidence of that. But I don't understand now why, okay, and you came out a year ago and you talked about it, but when you were doing collabs with him and he was able to build your career, this is why James Charles can get away with it, all right? Because everybody is so messy in Hollywood. Everybody is so messy in this industry, right? And so when you're saying all this kind of stuff, to me, I'm sitting there watching it and I'm like, yeah, I totally understand, Jeff, 100%, okay? Why you would never want anything to do with James Charles. I wouldn't either, okay? Gay or straight, I wouldn't want anything to do with them. I don't like the way the man moves. And he is a man. He is not a boy. He is a man, okay? I do not like the way that the man moves in any of his circles, all right? So I wouldn't want anything to do with him. But I'm not really sure, unless your opinions change, then share that and say, because that's not what you said. You said you didn't want to do collabs with him because of the Kevin Spacey-esque of it. You said something to that, right? Why don't you come out and say, you know, at that time, I didn't think that there was anything wrong with James Charles, but whatever. No, but what you say is that you don't understand where he got those vibes, right? So you and Tana are feeding into all of this, right? Well, this is the problem. As a drama channel, if I don't come out and cover this appropriately, then I'm not doing my job. If I come out as a drama channel and I just give bits and pieces, okay, and I say, well, James Charles is always bad, always bad, always bad, always bad, right? Then people are going to say, well, you brought up this point, but you didn't bring up that point, you didn't bring up this point. When you look at the overall picture, when I'm sitting there watching those videos, I was watching these videos of James Charles, like, he's like falling on you guys, and you guys are like laughing. You think it's cute, okay? I'm telling you right now, I am a married man. I take my marriage very seriously. If I was doing a video with somebody and they wanted to reach under my shirt, I would say my husband is not comfortable with that. I would set that boundary. I would say, I'm not comfortable with that. No, you don't need to reach underneath my shirt to find my microphone. Stop hitting on me. And I would say that on video, okay? So, Jeff, you want to know where James Charles got these vibes? He got them from you. He got them from Tana. He got Tana feeding out this tweet saying that, you know, she wanted to be this matchmaker between the two of you, right? So, really what that is video footage of James Charles thinking that he could get anybody. And the problem is that nobody at the time ever said to him, no, you can't. In fact, Toddy Westbrook was the first person that came out, right? And now her name has been so tarnished because she came out and she said this, and then she said that, and then she was coerced into saying this. Then she came out. Then James Charles convinced her that he was telling the truth. Then she was like, I'm just done with all of it. Toddy Westbrook was really the first person that ever came out and called him on his bullshit and said, no, you can't get anybody that you want, James, and that's not even appropriate to think that way, okay? To think that you can get anybody you want. This goes so much further than, like, this goes to people everywhere, in the workplace, okay, in your neighborhood, in your friend group, okay, that if you're hit on and if somebody's making you feel uncomfortable, that's not okay. You have a right to stand up for yourself. You have a right to set those boundaries. All right, now I don't know, maybe Jeff did it because he felt like he had to do that for the vlog squad. Maybe Jeff did that because he felt like, you know, it was going to help him if he did a collab with James Charles. I don't know why he did it, okay? And I'm sorry that he got hit on by James Charles. But I think, like, at some point, you have to look at this objectively, right? Part of the reason why James Charles today thinks he did nothing wrong is because of situations like this, right? And that's a problem, because then it minimizes the situations out there. When you have Jeff Wittek, okay, sitting in a hot tub talking about he doesn't understand why James Charles didn't get the vibes, and within 2 seconds of me looking up pictures for a thumbnail, I find videos from 5 years ago referencing you letting the guy, like, be inside your shirt, and Tana Mongeau tweeting out that she's going to hook you guys up together, okay, which was part of, I think, your falling out when you and Tana had a little bit of a falling out. I think it makes sense to say, well, these are the things that we need to discuss too. We need to discuss the collab that I did with him and explain it. I think we need to discuss, Tana, you tweeting this out. I just don't think that Tana, I mean, I don't think Tana has a lot of morals, okay? I don't think she has, well, I think her morals fit her for whatever she wants to do in that moment. That'll get her a lot of views, right? James Charles is completely problematic, okay? And still has a platform today. And this is the problem why. Because when people come and call him out, there are people that have also endorsed it. Like, if tomorrow Manny MUA called James Charles out, James Charles would be like, well, you didn't have a problem with it for 3 years. When I come out in videos and I say why I no longer support somebody, I explain why I no longer support somebody. I wish Jeff and Tana would get back in that hot tub and explain further why they no longer support James Charles today. And Tana, while you're at it, why don't you unfollow him on Instagram? If you don't support the man, there's no reason to follow him on Instagram. Unless you're a drama channel like those 2 drama channels out there that they have to follow somebody to get the story, which is really not the case because they just watch our videos and they remake them. But I don't understand why you need to follow James Charles if you don't support him and you believe that he's a predator, Tana. You said it now on multiple incidences, okay? Multiple podcasts you've said that you believe that. You've had this conversation about it. So, I don't understand it. I'm very confused about this whole situation. People wanted me to come in here and slam James Charles about this whole situation. This is the problem, okay? This is the problem with a situation like James Charles, is the one person that comes out and calls him out and says this, minus the 2 underage victims and the many men that have come out and stood by their stories, it doesn't match up, right? Tell the whole story. Tell what happened. What did you text James Charles back when he asked you to come over for a movie? You know? This is the thing, right? Like, I've had multiple straight, good-looking men that have been friends of mine in my life, that we've been very dear friends at points in our life, right? When I was single, when I've been with somebody, when I've been married, and otherwise, right? And to call them over and be like, do you want to go to dinner? Do you want to watch a movie? Would not be bizarre for them, okay? I have watched movies with many of my straight friends. That would not be bizarre for them, right? But I've also never taken it so far as to hit on them like James Charles has done on these people, right? But you have to set firm boundaries. And as gay men, we also have to set the boundary that we know that straight men want to be our friends and not overstep those boundaries. Tana asked that question. How many times does somebody have to refuse your advances? If I talk to somebody and they go, oh, I have a girlfriend or this or whatever, you know, like, I mean, this isn't like, when I came out in 1990, we didn't know, like, if somebody, we were talking to somebody and we thought they were cute, we met them one time, we didn't know if they were gay or straight, if they had a girlfriend, if they were interested. This is not the situation. You're making a video with the vlog squad. James, you know where Jeff Wittek stands in this, okay? And Tana feeds into it. And then 5 years later, when it's convenient for her to come out against James Charles, she does. But 2 months from now, when James Charles does something that she wants to ride his coattails again, she will. Because she won't unfollow him. She won't come out and make a solid stance against him. She won't even call the H3 podcast and denounce him like she said she did. Tana Mongeau is a fraud, okay? If you're going to talk about it, share the whole story. That will be what helps the story of the victims of James Charles, right? And to further that. Anyway, I was kind of confused about all this when I looked into it. I was like, what is this? This Tana Mongeau tweet that came out, and she was feeding into this, and then she wants to play dumb at 25 years old and act like, well, if a gay guy has, like, hit on you enough time and you've... Yes. Yes. We've had to fight that stigma for 70 years, okay? That gay men hit on straight men and try to recruit them. That gay men are predatory towards straight men. Okay, we've had to fight that stigma for 70 years, and people like James Charles are the reason why we have to fight that stigma. And there's all these powerful people around him, right, that continue to show up for his launches and don't call him out and think it's funny. And they don't really say what the real issue is. It's a huge issue, okay? It's a huge, huge, huge issue. And sadly, what I think, and when I came out in 1990, if I was talking to somebody that I thought was cute, and I didn't know if they were gay or straight, I would look for keywords. This is 30 years ago, okay? Do they say they have a girlfriend? Do they say, oh, she's hot? Do they say this? I would never overstep boundaries. And if I felt that I really liked this person, I'd say, hey, I really like you, you know, like, I'm gay, are you gay? It was scary to do, but we did it. It's 2024, okay? Especially when you're talking about people that you know their sexuality, you know that you're not interested in them, right? And yet you choose to overstep those boundaries anyway, and you don't care, right? Like, it's so problematic. I honestly think that part of the reason why James Charles gets away with this is because he is gay. Because if this were a man, okay, and if a man were doing this to, let's say, if a man, okay, was 21 years old talking to a 14-year-old girl sexually asking her for pictures, that person would be off the internet, okay? If James Charles, at his age, was hitting on, if he were a straight man, okay, advancing on a woman that didn't want it, that would be a huge issue, okay? There's been entire movies made about that. About people using their power, okay, within certain work worlds. There's been entire movies about that, right? And if Kevin Spacey, who Jeff Wittek actually refers to in this podcast, if Kevin Spacey hadn't been exposed on such a huge level, with so many people coming out and talking about it, then Kevin Spacey would probably still have a career today. You know, he just came out recently and says that he did his very own please uncancel me like James Charles, and said, doesn't he feel like he's been sitting in timeout long enough, is basically what he said. Don't people think he's been punished long enough? You know? If you're going to share the story, share the whole story. That's what I hope. Because I do think that James Charles is a really problematic person. I think he's a person that has demonstrated predatory behavior over and over and over again. There is documented evidence of that. And James Charles is somebody that has never gotten help from it. And history repeats itself, and he's going to hurt somebody again in the future. So if you're going to come out and talk about it, I hope it's not just for a topic on podcasts, and it's going to hit trending because everybody's going to say, oh my God, they're talking about James Charles and exposing him. Share the whole story. Share about how many times you had to text James Charles back and say, I'm not interested in you. That he kept on saying it, you know? Did he just ask you for a movie, or was it more? You know? But, like, this whole situation to me is so messy, and it's like, I mean, James Charles is problematic enough, right? Like, let's get the whole story. Anyway, let me know what you think in the comment section below. I love you guys, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye.